If you've ever felt like manifesting your desires was harder than it should be, like no matter how hard you tried to visualize or set intentions, something kept you stuck, this might be the most important idea you encounter. There is a reason why your efforts often feel like they're working against you, and it's not because you lack discipline or clarity. It's because most of what you've been taught about creating change relies on force. Forcing your mind to think positively, forcing your body to stay motivated, forcing reality to bend to your timeline. But in the realm of quantum physics and consciousness, force is rarely the catalyst for transformation. Instead, there's a phenomenon that explains why so many people get exhausted chasing results that never seem to materialize. It's called frequency interference. When your internal state is filled with effort, tension, and the anxiety of wanting something to happen, you introduce noise into your signal. From the perspective of the quantum field, your energy becomes inconsistent. One part of you is broadcasting desire, but another part is broadcasting fear that it won't arrive. The universe, or the quantum field, doesn't respond to just your stated intention. It responds to the totality of that signal, the full spectrum of your energy. This is why many people end up frustrated. No matter how hard they try to visualize the life they want, no matter how many times they repeat affirmations, if their inner world is in disarray, if their energy is still misaligned with their desire, the universe doesn't get a clean signal. The energy you emit is full of contradictions. You're saying one thing, but feeling another. You might say, "I am abundant," but deep down you feel lack, scarcity, and fear. The quantum field, as sophisticated as it is, picks up on these inconsistencies. It doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you are broadcasting. And when that frequency is incoherent, the universe cannot respond in alignment with your intentions. But what if the answer isn't in doing more? What if the secret to manifestation doesn't lie in more force or more effort, but rather in something much simpler, something more natural? That's what I call the quantum frequency shift, a state change so profound that it reorganizes your entire relationship with reality. It's not about thinking harder, working more, or performing elaborate rituals. It's about creating a coherent frequency inside your own energy field that resonates with what you're choosing to experience. The paradox of this shift is this: the moment you stop forcing reality to comply with your will, the energy you've been scattering in frustration consolidates. Your nervous system calms, your awareness expands. You shift from a contracted, tense signal to a harmonious, coherent one, and it's in that state that the quantum field begins to reflect your intention more clearly, almost effortlessly. If this sounds abstract, consider the science behind it. Every thought you have produces an electromagnetic signature. Every emotional state generates measurable patterns in your heart and brain. When you're stressed, your heart rhythm becomes erratic, your breath constricts, and your brain waves fragment into disordered frequencies. This state is known as incoherence, and it creates what researchers describe as biological noise. It's akin to trying to tune an old radio to a clear station while static is blaring in the background. No matter how beautiful the music is, you can't hear it because the signal isn't clean. This is why many people spend years repeating affirmations or visualization techniques without experiencing meaningful change. They layer positive thoughts over a body that is still in survival mode. They project desire while embodying resistance. So, no matter how many times they say, "I am abundant," the universe picks up the underlying vibration of lack. The quantum frequency shift isn't something you do, it's a shift you allow. It's about creating conditions for coherence to naturally arise. In other words, it's about aligning your physiology and awareness in a way that your energy stabilizes into a singular, powerful signal. And the best part? You don't have to be perfect or constantly monitor every thought. Your nervous system is capable of reorganizing itself when you simply provide it with the right inputs. Slower breathing, an intention rooted in curiosity rather than desperation, and a willingness to let go of urgency. Before we dive deeper into the science and technique, let's take a moment to consider something crucial. Every outcome in your life has been shaped by the frequency you consistently broadcast. Not the one you occasionally visit when you feel inspired, but the one you return to when no one is watching. That frequency isn't a moral judgment of your worth, it's simply the composite of your thoughts, emotions, and biological state. When you understand this, it becomes clear why no amount of forcing or striving can override a chronically incoherent signal. But the moment you experience coherence, when your breath, heart, and mind synchronize, something shifts. You feel it in your body, a softening, an openness, a quiet sense that you don't need to prove or chase anything. And ironically, it's often in this state of non-attachment that reality begins to respond in ways you once thought required effort. So, how can you create this shift? It starts with understanding the science behind it. In the field of neurocardiology, researchers have discovered that your heart produces the most powerful electromagnetic field in your body, many times stronger than the field generated by your brain. This field extends several feet beyond your skin, and it's measurable with modern instruments like magnetocardiograms. When you feel frustration, anxiety, or any form of survival stress, your heart rhythm becomes jagged and erratic. This is called incoherence. Incoherence is not a moral failing. It's simply the signature of a nervous system in defense mode. But here's the problem. When your heart rhythm is disordered, your brain waves become chaotic as well. Your breath shortens, your immune system goes on high alert, and your perception narrows to scan for threats. This is an ancient survival mechanism that once helped us avoid danger. But in modern life, it often becomes a chronic baseline, a baseline that broadcasts a signal of stress into the quantum field, whether you realize it or not. Now, contrast this with the state of coherence. When you intentionally slow your breathing and focus your awareness on feelings of appreciation or calm, your heart rhythm becomes smooth and sinuwave-like. Scientists call this a state of heart-brain coherence, and it has measurable effects. Stress hormones like cortisol decrease, while regenerative hormones like DHEA increase. Your brain waves synchronize with your heart rhythm, your immune system strengthens, and your perception expands beyond fear-driven thinking. This is not just theory, it's data. And from a quantum perspective, coherence creates a stable, powerful frequency, one that interacts with the field in ways incoherence cannot. Imagine it like tuning forks. When one tuning fork vibrates at a certain frequency, a nearby fork begins to resonate with that same frequency through a phenomenon called entrainment. Your coherent field works similarly. When you maintain this state, you entrain your environment and the probabilities within the field to match your signal. This is why, in elevated states, synchronicities appear more often. Solutions arrive seemingly out of nowhere, and life begins to feel like it's flowing rather than resisting you. Ancient traditions spoke of this state long before modern science caught up. Yogic texts described it as samadhi, a state of deep presence and unity. Mystics called it surrender, the art of releasing control and allowing a higher intelligence to organize reality. So, what does this all mean for you? The reality you've been trying so hard to force into existence is already available, waiting for you to tune to its frequency. This isn't just spiritual metaphor. It's a process that can be scientifically measured and practically applied. The moment you stop trying to force the universe into your timeline and instead align your internal frequency with what you desire, everything begins to shift. In the end, the life you've been chasing doesn't need to be chased. It's already here. You just need to tune in. In Taoist philosophy, this concept is known as Wu Wei, or effortless action. Though the terminology differs, the essence remains unchanged. When you release resistance and align your internal state, reality reorganizes itself in response. But let's clarify something important. Coherence doesn't mean you will never feel fear or doubt. It means you no longer live in that space. Instead, you learn to witness those fluctuations without collapsing your entire energy field into them. You return to a baseline of calm more easily because your nervous system becomes trained to recognize this as home. This is why the quantum frequency shift isn't about forcing yourself to feel good all the time. It's about cultivating the conditions: slower breath, relaxed awareness, authentic intention that allow coherence to arise naturally. When you experience this shift, you begin to realize something profound. Effort is often a symptom of misalignment. The harder you push, the more you signal to the field that you are separate from what you desire. The more you release and attune, the more naturally life begins to reflect your inner state. This is why many people feel exhausted on the path of personal development. They are trying to solve internal incoherence with more information, more techniques, and more performance. But the quantum field doesn't respond to volume. It responds to clarity. So, how do you create clarity in your energy field? You learn to notice when you're in incoherence and gently return to coherence over and over. You let go of urgency and remember that the field is participatory. It mirrors back the frequency you emit. Realizing this, you begin to understand that the shift you've been waiting for doesn't require external proof before you trust it. The moment you stop striving to force reality, you create the conditions for your field to reorganize itself. This process doesn't need to be complicated or require constant monitoring of every thought. All that's needed is the willingness to allow, to stop resisting, and to approach the practice with curiosity, not expectation. When you bring that openness, the technique becomes a doorway that you can return to whenever you need it. Now that we have a clearer understanding of coherence and how it works, you're ready to experience the quantum frequency shift for yourself. This practice isn't complicated, but it requires something most people find surprisingly difficult: the willingness to stop striving. Because the moment you stop trying to force reality, you create the conditions for your field to reorganize itself. Before we walk through the steps, I want you to know that this practice is not about achieving perfection. You don't have to be free from all doubt or negative emotion. You don't have to maintain a constant state of bliss. All that's required is your willingness to approach the practice with openness and curiosity. Here's how you begin. First, find a place where you can sit comfortably without interruption for a few minutes. You don't need any special environment or rituals, though if lighting a candle or playing soft ambient music helps, feel free to do so. What matters most is that you feel safe enough to turn your attention inward. Begin by closing your eyes and taking a slow, deliberate inhale through your nose. Let your belly expand as if you are gently filling a vessel. Exhale softly through your mouth, allowing your shoulders to drop. Repeat this breath 3 or 4 times until you feel your breathing naturally slowing down. This first step is called physiological priming. When you slow your breath, you signal to your nervous system that you are safe. This single act begins to shift your heart rhythm toward coherence. If you could see your electromagnetic field, you would notice the jagged, stressed waveforms soften into smoother patterns. Next, bring your attention to your heart center. If it helps, you can place a hand lightly over your chest. Imagine that each inhale draws a subtle, luminous energy into your heart. Each exhale then spreads this energy throughout your body, creating a calm, radiant field around you. Now, here's where the shift really happens. Gently introduce the feeling of appreciation. This doesn't need to be a dramatic wave of emotion. It can be something as simple as gratitude for the breath you're taking or the quiet space you've created. The key here is authenticity. Even a small, genuine feeling of appreciation has a powerful impact on your frequency. Hold this feeling for a minute or two, allowing it to build naturally without forcing it. If your mind wanders, notice it with kindness, and return to your breath and the sensation in your heart. You may start to feel subtle changes, a warmth in your chest, a sense of expansion, or simply a quiet stillness. This is the beginning of coherence. Once you feel stable, you can introduce a question that helps dissolve resistance and aligns your field with possibility. Ask yourself, what would it feel like if this was already resolved? Don't look for an intellectual answer. Instead, let your body respond. You might notice a softening in your chest, a gentle release in your jaw, or a sense of openness in your awareness. This embodied response is evidence that your nervous system is exiting the stress loop. This step is crucial because when you ask, what would it feel like, you bypass the logical mind that wants to plan, control, and predict. You move into the domain of frequency, the language the quantum field actually understands. The quantum field doesn't respond to your plans. It responds to the vibration you hold. Think of this process like tuning an instrument. You're not forcing the strings into harmony. Instead, you're gently adjusting the tension until resonance occurs. Sometimes that resonance arrives quickly, while other times it builds gradually. Either way, your only task is to stay curious and allow the process to unfold. You can practice this technique anytime before starting your day to set your baseline frequency, when you notice yourself slipping into stress or urgency, or before making important decisions. The idea is to make your actions arise from alignment, not fear. Many people expect dramatic shifts the first time they try this technique. Occasionally that happens, a sudden surge of insight or a powerful emotional release. But more often, the change is subtle. You simply feel less contracted, more receptive, and strangely at peace, even if nothing in your external circumstances has changed. This is what coherence feels like. From this place, you become far more effective not because you're working harder, but because your energy is no longer divided. Your intention is clear, your nervous system is calm, and your field is stable. Let me share a brief example to illustrate how this technique looks in practice. One of my clients, a creative professional, had spent months trying to secure a new opportunity. She was making plans, sending proposals, visualizing success, but beneath all of her effort, there was an undercurrent of fear. What if it doesn't happen? What does it mean about me? She was broadcasting two conflicting frequencies simultaneously, desire and doubt. And as a result, she remained in a state of stagnation. After practicing the quantum frequency shift, she noticed a profound change. Instead of pushing harder, she allowed herself to align her energy with the feeling of already having the opportunity. She let go of urgency and reconnected with the peaceful, trusting frequency of possibility. Soon after, the opportunity she had been hoping for finally came to fruition. This example shows how shifting your energy can directly influence your ability to manifest. The process of aligning with the frequency of your desires doesn't require force. It requires coherence, returning to a calm, focused, and authentic energy that resonates with the reality you want to create. As you practice, you'll find that life begins to reflect your inner state. The more aligned you are, the more synchronicities will appear, and things will unfold more effortlessly. This is the true power of the quantum frequency shift. Remember, this is not about being perfect. It's about releasing the pressure, letting go of the struggle, and simply allowing your energy to align. The more you practice, the more your reality will begin to match the frequency of your desires. So, take a deep breath, release the need to control, and tune your energy to the frequency of the life you want. Let the field respond to you. When she began practicing the quantum frequency shift, something remarkable happened. She stopped rehearsing outcomes, and instead, she started embodying the feeling of trust. Within just a few days, opportunities began to flow again. Introductions were made, unexpected collaborations emerged, and a project she had almost given up on reappeared. The point isn't that the practice magically delivered what she wanted. It's that her coherent signal made her more perceptive, more relaxed, and more able to recognize the doors that had always been open but had previously been unnoticed. This is the potential within you too. You don't have to force your reality into compliance. Instead, you can learn to attune yourself to the frequency that naturally attracts the things that resonate with your energy. In the next part of this experience, we'll explore what happens when you begin to live this way consistently, how your external life starts to reorganize itself around your newfound coherence, and the subtle signs that show your frequency is stabilizing. Stay with me. You're closer to this shift than you may think. When you begin practicing the quantum frequency shift consistently, something unexpected will likely occur. Life won't necessarily become easier in the sense that every challenge vanishes overnight, but the way you experience life changes so fundamentally that even the same circumstances feel lighter, clearer, and more workable. This is one of the first signs that your frequency is stabilizing. You'll realize that your sense of peace and possibility is no longer dependent on external validation or proof. Instead of waiting for reality to confirm that you're on the right path, you begin to feel a deep internal certainty that your alignment is the proof itself. One of the most powerful shifts you'll notice is that urgency dissolves. The constant background noise of, "I have to figure this out right now," starts to quiet. You'll find yourself responding to situations rather than reacting. Decisions will arise from clarity instead of anxiety. Even if your mind occasionally slips into old patterns, you'll return to your baseline of coherence more quickly. This doesn't mean you stop caring about outcomes. It means you stop believing that you need to control everything in order to be okay. And paradoxically, as you let go of the compulsion to force, you often see more movement in your external life. The projects that once felt stuck begin to open. Conversations you were dreading resolve themselves more smoothly. Resources and connections start to show up with less friction. This is not magic, it's resonance. The clearer your signal, the easier it becomes for reality to organize itself around your frequency. In quantum terms, your field collapses probabilities into form. However, the quality of what emerges is shaped by the coherence and consistency of your vibration. Let's look at a few examples of how this shift can show up in your life. 1. Synchronicity increases. You might think of someone you haven't spoken to in months, and they call you that very day. You feel an inexplicable nudge to visit a place or explore a topic, only to discover that it holds exactly the next step you needed. These aren't coincidences. They are evidence that your field is interacting more fluidly with the larger web of possibility around you. Relationships recalibrate. People who resonate with your old patterns may naturally drift away. New connections will enter your life, often carrying a sense of familiarity or ease. You may feel drawn to collaborations that once felt out of reach, not because you worked harder, but because your frequency now matches those opportunities. Your body feels different. Many people report subtle but profound physiological changes, such as improved sleep, steadier energy, or a softer baseline in the nervous system. You might notice that you breathe more deeply without trying, or that your body releases tension spontaneously. These are signs that your nervous system is shifting into alignment with your new frequency. 4. You feel less reactive. Challenges still arise, but they don't feel like personal threats. You find yourself observing situations instead of immediately contracting into them. This is one of the clearest signs that your coherence is becoming stable. Even when circumstances fluctuate, you maintain perspective and emotional resilience. 5. A quiet sense of trust emerges. Perhaps the most life-changing effect of this shift is the feeling that you don't have to prove yourself to anyone, not even to yourself. You know, in an embodied way, that your worth doesn't depend on achievements or outcomes. This trust becomes magnetic, allowing you to act with purpose without the weight of desperation. You feel anchored in your own worth, knowing that everything you need is already within you. When these shifts begin to surface, many people wonder, how do I know this is real? The answer is simple. When your perception, physiology, and responses change in ways you couldn't force before, you're not imagining progress, you're experiencing it. This is why the quantum frequency shift isn't a quick fix or a technique you use once and forget. It's a practice, a way of relating to yourself and to the field that grows stronger every time you return to it. The more consistently you cultivate coherence, the more naturally you stabilize in a frequency that attracts experiences aligned with who you're becoming. And here's something important to remember. It's normal to oscillate. You'll have days when old patterns resurface. You'll catch yourself reacting or doubting. This is part of the integration process. Every time you notice and choose to return to coherence, you reinforce your new baseline. Think of it like strengthening a muscle. Each repetition builds capacity. So, before we move into the next part of this experience, I'd love to invite you to acknowledge this process in yourself. Naming your shift, claiming it consciously, amplifies the signal you're broadcasting. If you're feeling even a subtle resonance right now, a sense that something in you is reorganizing, take a moment to anchor it. In the comments, simply write, "I am shifting." These 3 words are more than just a phrase. They're a declaration to your nervous system, to your subconscious mind, and to the quantum field that you are choosing a new way of being. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to explore the most common mistakes people make when practicing this shift, and how to avoid falling back into the cycle of force and frustration. You'll see that sustaining coherence doesn't require perfection. It only requires your willingness to keep returning to presence over and over until it becomes your natural state. You're already closer to this transformation than you realize. If you've been practicing the quantum frequency shift or any form of vibrational alignment, you've probably noticed how quickly the mind wants to turn it into another performance, a way to measure, judge, and prove your worth. It's almost inevitable at first, because we've all been conditioned to believe that results only come through effort and control. But this is one of the greatest paradoxes you'll encounter on this path. The more you chase a certain state, the more you reinforce the feeling that you don't have it. The more you try to force coherence, the more you signal to the field that you're still operating from a place of separation. This is why so many people get stuck in cycles of frustration. They start the practice with sincere intention. They feel a moment of real peace, and then almost immediately, their mind begins to ask, "Is this working? Why don't I feel it more strongly? Why hasn't everything changed yet?" These questions are understandable. They come from the part of you that's been taught to measure progress by external markers and instant gratification. But in the quantum realm, the field doesn't respond to impatience or self-criticism. It responds to clarity and consistency. Let's look at the most common pitfalls that can pull you back into incoherence and how to navigate them with awareness. 1. Trying to force an emotion you don't genuinely feel. Many people believe they must manufacture bliss, love, or euphoria in order to elevate their frequency. But this kind of forced emotional state is just another form of resistance. The true power of coherence lies in authenticity. It's not about pretending to feel a certain way, but rather about allowing your true feelings to be experienced without judgment. When you allow yourself to feel whatever is there, without trying to change it, you align with the natural flow of your energy. 2. Measuring progress too quickly. The quantum frequency shift isn't about getting immediate results. It's about creating a stable energy field that attracts experiences aligned with your new vibration. Trying to force results or judge your progress too soon only creates resistance. The key is to let go of the need to measure and simply allow the process to unfold. Trust that each moment of alignment is building the foundation for deeper, more profound change. 3. Falling back into old patterns of thought. It's easy to slip back into old ways of thinking, especially when faced with challenges. But instead of beating yourself up for falling off track, simply notice the shift in your energy. Notice when you're slipping into old patterns and return to coherence with kindness. This is part of the process, and each time you consciously return to alignment, you reinforce the new pattern. The most important thing to remember on this journey is that coherence is not a destination, it's a practice. The more you return to it, the more natural it becomes. With time, your frequency becomes more stable, and your life begins to reflect the changes you've made on the inside. You don't have to force reality, you simply have to align with it. Forced emotion creates inner conflict. When you're feeling doubt, sadness, or frustration, pretending to feel gratitude or joy only adds another layer of resistance. It becomes a performance rather than a genuine experience, and this dissonance within yourself can block the very flow you're seeking. Instead, start with something real, even if it feels small. Appreciate the relief of taking a deeper breath, or the simple fact that you have a moment to pause. The authenticity of your feelings holds far more energetic coherence than any forced emotion or performance could ever achieve. When you allow yourself to be real and acknowledge what you're truly feeling, you can move into a space where your energy aligns with what you desire. Forcing yourself to feel positive emotions without first acknowledging your true state simply adds resistance. But when you drop the facade and feel your feelings as they are, you naturally move into a more coherent, stable state. Authenticity is the key to creating the internal coherence necessary for transformation. Another mistake people often make is using the practice of the quantum frequency shift as a strategy to manipulate outcomes. It's natural to hope that aligning your energy will improve your life, and over time, it certainly will. But if your primary motive behind the practice is to get something from the field, to manifest a specific result quickly, you'll slip back into force. The quantum frequency shift works best when you view coherence as an end in itself. The calm, the clarity, the sense of connection, these are the real gifts. From this state of inner harmony, outcomes emerge organically, often in ways you couldn't have scripted. It's about the process of alignment, not just achieving a specific outcome. When you're trying to manipulate outcomes, the energy you're putting out can feel desperate or controlling. The quantum field is receptive to the energy you emit, and when it senses that you are trying to force a result, it can create resistance. Coherence, on the other hand, attracts what resonates naturally without the need for manipulation. If you shift your focus from trying to get something to simply aligning with the flow of the universe, you'll find that what you desire arrives with much less effort. A third common pitfall is becoming hypervigilant about every thought. Once you realize that your energy shapes reality, it's tempting to monitor your mind obsessively. You might catch a negative thought and immediately panic, fearing you've messed up your vibration. But this kind of hypercontrol only creates more incoherence. Thoughts will arise, doubts will surface, and that's completely normal. None of this has to be a problem if you can witness them without identifying with them. The field doesn't require perfection. It responds to your dominant, consistent frequency over time. When you are hyper-focused on every thought, you're adding stress to your system. You're still trying to control everything, which sends the message that you're not at ease, and that's the very thing that disturbs the flow. Instead of battling your thoughts or trying to suppress them, simply observe them. Acknowledge their presence, but don't engage with them. The more you practice this awareness, the less power those fleeting thoughts will have over you. In time, the frequency you embody will naturally become more coherent, and the need to monitor every thought will fade away. Expecting immediate dramatic change is another mistake that can hinder your progress. Some shifts can indeed feel instant. You may experience a surge of clarity or a sudden release of tension, but more often, transformation is incremental, a gradual reorganization of perception and physiology. If you keep measuring your progress by how quickly reality rearranges itself, you might miss the subtle indicators that your frequency is already rising. Signs of this include deeper sleep, more spontaneous calm, and less reactivity. These are the foundational changes that set the stage for bigger shifts to come. Transformation is not always about dramatic breakthroughs. Often, it's about subtle shifts in how you experience your own energy and how you react to life. You may notice that the situations that once triggered you no longer have the same effect. Challenges still arise, but you face them with a sense of peace and clarity that wasn't there before. The more you stabilize your frequency, the more you become resilient to external circumstances. This process can take time, but each small step is progress. Another common mistake is abandoning the practice when life becomes challenging. Ironically, the moments when you feel most contracted are the times when coherence can serve you most powerfully. But many people assume that if they can't feel calm naturally, the practice isn't working, so they stop. This is when it's most important to return to the basics. Slowing your breath, softening your awareness, and remembering that your worth doesn't depend on feeling perfect. When life becomes challenging, the natural inclination is to force a solution. But this only increases the tension and makes things harder. Instead, return to the practice, focus on your breath, soften your awareness, and remember that you are worthy even when things are difficult. Over time, you'll build the capacity to stay coherent even in turbulent moments. The more you practice returning to coherence, the more natural it becomes to remain stable, even in chaos. Mastery doesn't mean being in a state of bliss all the time. It means being able to return to alignment every time you drift away. This is how you truly master the art of coherence, not by avoiding life's challenges, but by facing them with a stable frequency. You become adept at moving through difficulty without losing your center. Every time you choose alignment, you reinforce your ability to stay present and calm, no matter what's happening around you. One way to make this process easier is to shift your definition of success. Instead of asking, "Did I manifest what I wanted today?" try asking yourself, "Did I return to coherence more often today? Did I notice when I slipped into force? Did I soften my grip?" Even for a moment. These questions help you measure the only thing you can truly control, your internal state. The more you focus on your internal coherence, the more external shifts become inevitable. When coherence is your priority, external circumstances will begin to fall into place, not because you're forcing them, but because you're no longer scattering your energy. Instead of pushing against reality, you align with it. And from that place, life naturally begins to flow in alignment with your energy. In the next part of this experience, we'll bring everything together. I'll guide you through a short exercise you can practice right now to feel your frequency stabilizing in real time. You'll also hear an invitation to join a community of people committed to living from the state of coherence, not as a fleeting experience, but as a new way of being. Stay present, because integration is where transformation becomes lasting and where you'll discover that the field has always been listening. Now that you've learned the principles behind the quantum frequency shift, and explored how to recognize and avoid the most common traps. It's time to experience this shift for yourself. No amount of theory can replace the felt sense of coherence in your own body. This practice will only take a few minutes, but it can serve as a powerful reset whenever you feel yourself slipping back into effort and urgency. You can return to it any time you need to remember how simple it can be to align with a more stable frequency. Find a quiet place where you can sit comfortably without distractions. You don't need to be in a perfect state of mind, nor do you need to clear all your thoughts. Just bring your willingness to be here, exactly as you are. Gently close your eyes or soften your gaze. Let your hands rest on your lap or over your heart, whichever feels more natural. Take a slow, steady inhale through your nose. Feel your belly expand. Hold the breath for a moment, then release it softly through your mouth. Do this 2 more times, each time letting the exhale become longer than the inhale. With your next breath, bring your attention to the space in the center of your chest. Imagine this space as a soft, luminous field, a quiet presence that has always been here beneath the noise of your thoughts. As you continue to breathe, invite a feeling of appreciation into your awareness. It doesn't have to be overwhelming or perfect. Just find something simple you can be grateful for. The breath in your lungs, the steadiness of the chair supporting you, the fact that you've chosen to spend this moment with yourself. Let this feeling expand gently. You don't need to force it. You don't need to analyze it. Simply notice how your body responds as you hold appreciation in your awareness. Maybe your shoulders drop, your jaw softens, or you feel a subtle warmth in your chest. Stay here for a few breaths, allowing the sense of coherence to grow naturally. Now, introduce a single question into the space of your heart. What would it feel like if I stopped forcing? Don't look for an answer in words, let your body respond. Perhaps there's a small sense of relief, a soft exhale, or a quiet spaciousness. This is coherence. This is the frequency beneath all striving. If your mind drifts, just notice it and return to your breath and the feeling in your heart. You're not trying to create anything. You're simply remembering what it feels like to be in resonance. Stay here as long as you like. When you're ready, take one more slow inhale, feeling the stability of this state. As you exhale, gently open your eyes, bringing this sense of coherence with you. If you felt something shift, even subtly, know that this is where real transformation begins, not in grand gestures or dramatic breakthroughs, but in moments when you choose to return to alignment without demanding instant proof. This is a practice you can carry into every part of your life. Before a conversation, before you start your day, or whenever you feel the urge to control or question your progress, you can pause, breathe, and remember. Coherence is always available to you. And if you found value here, if something in you feels a little clearer, calmer, and more willing to trust, I'd love to invite you to stay connected. Subscribing to this channel isn't about collecting more techniques or chasing the next idea. It's about joining a community of people who are ready to live from this place of coherence together, a space where science and spirituality meet, where we can explore these principles with curiosity and depth, and where your evolution is supported one breath at a time. Thank you for being here, for the quiet courage it takes to let go of force and trust the intelligence of your own field. Stay in coherence, keep observing with compassion, and always remember, the field responds to who you are, not what you try to prove.